Don't know what to eat in a day on a GLP-1? I'm gonna let you know. I'm Lori. Welcome to GLP-1 Journey and Review. Today, I'm gonna tell you what I usually eat in a day. I'm not perfect. I never claim to be. Maybe even a little unorthodox because I'm not a breakfast person. But I haven't done one of these videos in a while, so here we go. As I just told you, I'm really not much of a breakfast eater, but I do have a protein shake. I do make sure that my shake has at least 17 grams of protein, if not more. I personally like the powder because I like to put some protein milk in it, the Fairlife, so I get a little extra protein and a bunch of ice and it makes it a little thicker, kind of milkshakey, and I like that. I also put a scoop of collagen in my protein shake, so that adds even more protein. So that's basically 17, 10, 10. We're basically up to 35, 37 grams of protein. I'm guessing that because I'm not exact on the scoops and so forth and the milk, so I'm a little bit higher. And that's usually what I have. Again, I get up pretty early and I usually don't even start my shake until about 9:30, 10 o'clock, just because I have my coffee in the morning. And yes, I do put a little bit of collagen in that and a little bit of the vanilla, no sugar added cream. I try to cut my coffee down to 1 cup because I found I was drinking a really lot of caffeine, and that probably isn't the best thing for me. So I have the coffee with the collagen in the morning, and then about 9:30, 10 o'clock, I start drinking on my shake. Now, I drink it pretty slowly, again, usually by the time lunch rolls around, if I'm working, our supposed time for lunch, even though I don't really get one at work, is around 12 o'clock. But I usually get like a 5-minute break where I could heat up my food if I brought any. Now, just a little caveat, if I find that I'm not getting enough protein or enough calories for some reason, because I am on maintenance, I do add a little bit of Greek yogurt to my shake for some more calories and some more protein. Not really even so much for the protein, more for the calories. I've stopped doing that and thought about possibly having the yogurt on the side because it just makes it too thick for me. So that's my breakfast. Now let's move on to lunch. Lunch, I tend to bring a piece of chicken. I have lots of delis around. I buy some sort of grilled chicken, sometimes with some mushrooms. Sometimes I have some leftover for dinner, but I tend to have that with a very small salad or some cucumbers and onions, something along those lines. And that is my typical lunch. Again, since I'm usually working through lunch, sometimes it depends. Sometimes if I have 5, 10 minutes, I kind of wolf down my food. I know not the best thing to do, especially on a GLP-1, but that's pretty much the way work is in the medical field. You take when you get it. Otherwise, it's a bite here, go do a patient, another bite, go do a patient, and it lasts a while. And I find if I do it that way, I really don't eat as much. And sometimes I run into, am I getting enough calories? So sometimes not by choice, I wolf it down pretty quick, only because I want to get the calories. And I guess I've been doing this for so long. I've been doing this for almost 40 years in the medical profession that it doesn't seem to affect me eating that quickly. Again, not the best thing. Again, I'm a little unorthodox. A little bit after that, I usually bring some grapes with me, sometimes a hard boiled egg, sometimes a little bit of nuts, sometimes a little bit of guacamole. I usually buy those in the small individual containers at the grocery store, and I try to get the all natural organic. So they say, I don't know if you could really believe that. That's what I have for a snack. Occasionally, once in a while, I'll bring a protein chips. I'm trying to stay out of that habit, and pretty much if over the last year or so, if I've maybe had 10 bags of chips, that would be a lot. That's not my go-to snack, and I'm happy for that. Now that's all different if I go to the movies. I tend to bring one of those with me, or I'll get some popcorn or something along those lines. But that doesn't happen very often because I found there's not a really lot of good movies out there. And by the time my schedule is free to go see a movie, it's usually out on TV. But that's a whole nother issue. So I've covered my breakfast, I've covered my lunch, I've covered my snack. We'll get into dinner a little bit later, but as for my drinks, like I said, I start off with a cup of coffee with a collagen. I all through the day have water. I try to limit myself to electrolytes to 2 a day, and not a huge plain water drinker, so sometimes I'll add some Crystal Light to it, and I tend to get about 3 to 4 bottles of water in for the day, which is, I think, pretty good. Yeah, that's the best I could do. Sometimes I've just recently discovered Poppy prebiotic sodas, which are pretty good, and they have quite a bit of fiber in them, which is not bad. Not a huge soda drinker, but it's not super carbonated, so I kinda like it. I've also discovered the zero sugar Sprite iced tea, again, not super carbonated, and I think if I have maybe 3 cans a week, that's a lot, but it all adds into what you're drinking. Since I've cut back on my coffee and I've only had 1 coffee and I am somewhat of a caffeine junkie, I bought I should have brought it in here, but I bought a bottle of espresso dehydrated, well, not dehydrated, but it's condensed, whatever. So 2 tablespoons equals a shot of espresso. And what I do is I put some of that in my cup, and I have found skinny brown sugar cinnamon 0 calorie syrup, a little bit of that, some ice, and I'll have some protein milk. Or if I think that I haven't gotten enough calories or enough protein for some reason, I'll add a vanilla protein shake and have that. Somewhat similar to Starbucks, brown sugar, iced, shaken espresso, brown sugar, oat milk, whatever they call it, but those are basically all the ingredients. Only I use a protein milk and I use the zero sugar syrup, 0 calorie syrup, and I like that. So, I've tried to cut down to that. Am I gonna lie to you? One time I did have a half a can of it wasn't Diet Red Bull, but it was a similar, I think it was Celsius actually. Again, trying to cut back, so I think if I've only had a half a can in the last few weeks, for me, that's pretty good. Now, as far as dinner, I love fresh seafood. Unfortunately, working 12 to 14-hour days, I don't really want to come home and cook. Now, I only do 3 to 4 of those a week. I was doing 5 or 6, but I've cut back because I just said I need a little break from that. So, on the days that I'm not working, I go out and buy fresh fish because South Florida is abundant. Some of my favorites are salmon, swordfish, tuna, and I'll have cod once in a while. I'll have some mahi once in a while, and sometimes I'll have some trout, all which I could get fresh nearby. Usually I make it in the air fryer. Sometimes I just season it with some lemon and seasonings, and sometimes the last few seconds I'll throw just a little bit of garlic butter on top of it, just small amount, or sometimes I'll spray a little bit of olive oil and throw some garlic on it just to get some fats in there. Have that with a vegetable, and that tends to be my dinner. Occasionally, I'll have 2 vegetables if I find that I'm hungry, or uh, I'll admit, because on my work shift, and it tends to be days in a row, sometimes I have too many vegetables in the refrigerator, and sometimes I have to make 2 vegetables, and sometimes some does go to waste, but I'd rather have a small amount of two than one and totally throw out the other vegetable. So those are my dinners on the days that I don't work. On the days that I work, I've decided to use factor meals. They have some that are supposedly specialized for GLP-1, but they're pretty much the same as the low carb or their keto. If I change it, I'm going to get 99% of the same dinners. So that's what I have. And they do have a little bit extra carbs in there that I normally don't. On occasion, when I make my dinners, I'll have a half of a sweet potato or a little brown rice or a little quinoa, but again, not too often. But there's always some sort of starch in the factor meals. Now, when they have it as like mashed potatoes, it is a very small helping of mashed potatoes, but it's good and it takes care of it. And you get your carbs along with the carbs that are in the vegetable. And I tend to go with the chicken because I like the salmon, but I like my salmon better. I wouldn't mind the salmon, but my wife just says, "No, I'm not gonna eat any other salmon but yours." So either if I'm gonna have salmon, I have to get her something different. C'est la vie. So they're mainly chicken. Occasionally, I'll have some of their beef stuff. It's pretty good. I try to keep it right around the 550 calorie mark. I do check the label of how much fat, how much carbs. And again, it does force me to eat some stuff that I normally wouldn't make for myself. And that's fine because you do need it. It is important to have a nutrient dense diet on these medications. And sometimes I can't do that on my own with just fish, vegetables, and occasional carbs. So it does help with that. As far as dessert, because I am a big dessert person, I have fresh fruit just about every single night. For me, it takes care of my sweet tooth. Again, we're very abundant with it down in South Florida. And when it's not season for that melon or particular fruit, I have a farmer's market by me that'll get it from another part of the country or even a different country where it is in season. So a little bonus for me. I don't know if everybody has that. Otherwise, I find grapes are usually pretty good all through the year. Pineapple is usually pretty good all through the year. Apples are pretty good all through the year, although October is best time for apples. Try not to have frozen or canned fruit. And on the very rare occasion that I do, I make sure it's in its own natural juice. And I don't eat the juice because I'd rather eat my calories. So the juice gets thrown out, or if I happen to be making chicken or some sort of fish, that juice might taste good and a little drizzle on, I'll use it for that, but doesn't happen very often. I have always been somewhat addicted to Reese's peanut butter cups. So when I really have that urge, I found there are probably 7 brands, Quest, Atkins, and there's a couple of other brands out there that make very low sugar, even added a little protein and other nutrients versions of it. And I'll occasionally have that. I find it very good. As a matter of fact, the last time that I actually had a real one, I thought it was way too sweet. Trying to get out of that habit, but like I said, once in a while, I just want something with chocolate. And once in a great while, I'll want a real piece of chocolate, not a Atkins version or Quest version and so forth. But if I'm really hungry and really want something sweet, sometimes the Quest bars, certain ones will actually taste like a candy bar and I'll have it. And it's a better choice because that's what this is all about, better choices. Now, I could live with this lifestyle. I could live with it basically forever. That's what I'm planning. I do go to restaurants and I do have stuff I probably shouldn't, that lasagna, mac and cheese, that type of thing. But it's a smaller portion now, and I find that's much better. So tell me in the comments what kind of foods you eat and what kind of foods you may eat that you're not supposed to. but it's okay. We give ourselves some grace. If you found this useful at all, please hit that like and subscribe button.